The wedding reception was exactly what I'd expected. Ostentatious, expensive, and designed to make everyone feel inferior to my sister Lauren and her new husband Chad. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling of the country club ballroom. The centerpieces alone probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. 200 guests in designer outfits sipped champagne that cost $40 a glass. And in the middle of it all sat me, Chen, 29 years old, wearing a simple navy dress from Target and drinking water because I had a conference call scheduled in 2 hours. Riley. My mother's voice cut across the table. Why aren't you drinking? It's your sister's wedding. I have work later, Mom. She laughed. That particular laugh that said I'd disappointed her again. Work? On a Saturday evening? Honey, you need to learn work-life balance. Look at Lauren, she knows how to enjoy life. Lauren, my older sister by 4 years, was indeed enjoying life. She'd married Chad Whitmore, whose family owned a chain of car dealerships across Connecticut. She'd quit her marketing job 6 months ago to become a full-time fiancé, which apparently was a real career now. I, on the other hand, still worked. A lot. But my family thought I was just a low-level tech support worker at some startup, grinding away for $50,000 a year while living in a studio apartment. They weren't entirely wrong about the apartment. It was a studio in Cambridge, Massachusetts. They just didn't know it cost $4,000 a month and I paid cash. Riley's very dedicated to her little tech job, Lauren said from the head table, her voice carrying across the room. Even if it doesn't pay much. It's admirable, really. Polite laughter rippled through the guests. My phone buzzed. A text from my CFO, Amanda Walsh. Riley, board wants to move up the NASDAQ listing announcement. Possible conflict with your sister's wedding. Should I delay? I texted back. No. Proceed as planned. I'll handle it. My Uncle Robert leaned over. Still glued to that phone, Riley? You know, in my day we actually talked to people at weddings. Sorry, Uncle Robert. Just work. That tech support job keeping you busy? He grinned. Your sister told us all about it. Must be rough answering phones all day. I smiled and said nothing. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I wasn't in tech support. I was the founder and CEO of Vertex Analytics, a data analytics and AI software company I'd started 6 years ago with $12,000 and a laptop. Last year's revenue, $340 million. Current valuation, $2.8 billion. My personal net worth, $1.4 billion. We were going public on NASDAQ in 3 weeks. The announcement was scheduled for 7 p.m. tonight, right in the middle of Lauren's reception. I tried to get her to move the wedding date. She'd refused, saying, "Your work schedule doesn't dictate my wedding, Riley. Learn priorities." So I'd let it go. And now both events were happening simultaneously. Attention, everyone. Chad stood up, champagne glass in hand. Time for the best man's toast. Chad's brother Brandon stood, already drunk, and began a rambling speech about brotherhood and true love. Then it was the maid of honor's turn, Lauren's college roommate, talking about their fabulous adventures. Finally, my father stood. Now, I'd like to say a few words about my daughters. Here it comes, I thought. Lauren has always been the bright star of our family, Dad began. Beautiful, successful, and now married to a wonderful man from a wonderful family. We couldn't be prouder. Applause. Lauren beamed. And then there's Riley. Dad's voice changed, still affectionate but with an edge of disappointment. Riley's always been our determined one. She works very hard at her tech support job, even if it doesn't pay much. She's independent, living in that tiny apartment in Cambridge, making do with her modest salary. We wish she'd aim higher like her sister, but we love her anyway. Laughter. Sympathetic looks directed my way. My mother added, Riley even came to the wedding without a gift. Can you imagine? Her own sister's wedding. But I suppose on her salary every penny counts. More laughter. Lauren was laughing too, shaking her head like I was a hopeless case. I'd given Lauren a gift. A check for $50,000 in a simple card. She'd opened it that morning, looked at it and said, "Is this supposed to be impressive? Chad's parents gave us $200,000. Then she'd thrown it aside. My phone buzzed again. Amanda, press release goes live in 15 minutes. NASDAQ confirmed. Stock symbol VRTX. Are you sure about the timing? I typed back, positive. Let it run. Build up. Growing up, I'd always been the other daughter. Lauren was pretty, popular, and effortlessly social. I was awkward, bookish, and more interested in computers than people. When Lauren got into Georgetown, there was a celebration party. When I got into MIT with a full scholarship, my parents said, "That's nice, dear," and went back to planning Lauren's going-away party. Lauren had majored in marketing and landed a corporate job through Dad's connections. I'd majored in computer science and artificial intelligence, graduating at the top of my class. But in my family's eyes, Lauren's corporate job was real success, while my tech interests were that computer hobby. At 23, I'd started Vertex Analytics in my tiny apartment. The idea was simple: use AI to help companies analyze massive datasets and make better decisions. I'd bootstrapped it with $12,000 I'd saved from my part-time programming jobs during college. The first year, I'd made $8,000 in revenue. My family had laughed when I'd told them I was starting a company. By year 2, I'd landed my first major client, a pharmaceutical company that paid me $200,000 to analyze their clinical trial data. I'd hired my first 2 employees. By year 3, revenue hit $4 million. I'd hired Amanda Walsh, a seasoned CFO from a Fortune 500 company who believed in my vision. I never told my family. They'd assumed I'd failed and taken a regular job at a tech company. I let them think that. It was easier than explaining, easier than defending myself, easier than watching them dismiss my success. By year 4, revenue was $48 million. By year 5, $127 million. By year 6, $340 million. We'd grown to 847 employees. Our AI software was used by 63 Fortune 500 companies. We'd been approached by multiple venture capital firms wanting to invest. Instead, I decided to go public. The IPO was scheduled for next month, with the official announcement tonight. My phone rang. I stepped outside to the country club terrace. Riley, we're 10 minutes out. The press release will go live at 7 p.m. CNBC is running the story first. They're calling it one of the biggest tech IPOs of the year. Expected valuation? I asked. Opening at $2.8 billion. Possibly higher depending on institutional investor interest. Your 51% stake puts your net worth at approximately $1.4 billion. You'll be the youngest self-made female billionaire in tech. I looked back through the windows at the reception. Lauren and Chad were cutting their cake, laughing, celebrating their perfect life. They had no idea their poor sister was about to become a billionaire. Let it run, I said. On schedule. I walked back inside just as Lauren was preparing to throw her bouquet. She spotted me and grinned. Riley, get up here. You need this bouquet more than anyone. Maybe it'll help you find a man who can support you. Laughter erupted. I stayed seated. Come on, Riley. Don't be shy. Lauren insisted. I stood up slowly and walked to the crowd of single women. Lauren turned her back and threw the bouquet high in the air. It landed directly in my hands. There you go. Lauren announced. Now you just need to find a man who doesn't mind dating a girl with a tech support salary. More laughter. Chad added, better make sure he has a good job. Someone needs to pay the bills. My phone buzzed. 7 p.m. exactly. Amanda, press release is live. CNBC just broke the story. Stock market analysts are calling it historic. I looked at my phone screen. The CNBC headline, Vertex Analytics TO go public. 29-year-old founder Riley Chen set to become billionaire. Revelation. My phone started ringing. First my business attorney. Then my investment banker. Then board members. I silenced them all and walked back to my table. Riley, you're being so rude. Mom scolded. Put that phone away. Actually, Mom, I need to take this. It's important. More important than your sister's wedding? Yes. The room went quiet. Lauren's face turned red. Excuse me, she said, her voice sharp. I have a work situation. I'll be right back. I walked to a quiet corner of the ballroom and called Amanda back. Riley, it's exploding, she said, excitement in her voice. CNBC ran the story, then Bloomberg picked it up. Twitter's going crazy. The stock market analysts are predicting the IPO will be oversubscribed by 400%. You're about to be very, very famous. How long until it hits mainstream news? It already has. CNN just ran it. MIT grad builds billion-dollar AI company in 6 years. Your face is literally on television right now. I hung up and returned to my table. Several guests were looking at their phones, confused expressions on their faces. Uncle Robert looked up from his phone. There's a Riley Chen in the news. Same name as you. Some tech CEO going public. Weird coincidence. Not a coincidence, I said quietly. What? Before I could answer, someone near the bar shouted, "Holy shit! This Riley Chen is from Cambridge, Massachusetts. And she's 29. Heads turned. Phones came out. People started searching. Lauren walked over, annoyed. What's going on? Why is everyone on their phones? My mother pulled up something on her phone, stared at it, then looked at me. Riley? Is this you? He showed me the screen. My professional headshot from the Vertex Analytics website, underneath the headline, Riley Chen, 29, founder of Vertex Analytics, to ring NASDAQ opening bell. Yes, I said simply. That's me. The room exploded in confused chatter. You're a CEO? Dad's voice was barely a whisper. Yes. I founded Vertex Analytics 6 years ago. We provide AI-powered data analytics to Fortune 500 companies. We're going public next month. Current valuation is $2.8 billion. I own 51%, which makes my net worth approximately $1.4 billion. Silence. Complete absolute silence. Lauren's face had gone white. You're lying. I'm not. Check any financial news site. The press release went live 10 minutes ago. Chad pulled out his phone, typing frantically. His face went pale. It's real. Jesus Christ, it's real. Vertex Analytics, CEO Riley Chen, NASDAQ listing billion-dollar valuation. But. Lauren's voice cracked. But you work in tech support. You live in a studio apartment. You drive a 10-year-old Honda. I work as CEO of my own company. I live in a studio because I'm rarely home. I travel constantly for business. I drive a Honda because I don't care about cars. I care about building my company. My father stood up. Why didn't you tell us? I tried. 6 years ago I told you I was starting a company. You laughed. You called it, that computer hobby. You told me to get a real job. So I stopped telling you anything. We thought you'd failed. Mom said. I know. I let you think that. It was easier. Lauren's hands were shaking. So when I threw away your $50,000 check this morning, you can actually afford that? I can afford much more than that. That check was a fraction of my net worth. I make more in interest every week than you'll make this year. Chad looked like he'd been punched. We made jokes about you. About your salary. About your apartment. I know. You made them constantly. In front of everyone. You called me poor. You said I couldn't afford gifts. You said I needed to aim higher. Kept my voice even. You made those jokes while I was building a company that will be worth more than your family's entire dealership chain. The entire reception was watching now. 200 people silent, staring. Uncle Robert's voice broke the silence. Riley, you're a billionaire? Yes. And we've been treating you like a failure. Yes, you have. For 6 years. My phone rang again. I answered on speaker. Riley Chen. Miss Chen, this is Rachel Morrison from CNBC. We'd like to schedule an interview about your company's NASDAQ listing. We're calling it the tech story of the year. Would you be available? I'm at my sister's wedding right now. Oh, I apologize. When would be a good time? I'll have my assistant coordinate. Thank you. I hung up. Lauren was crying now, mascara running down her face. You did this on purpose. You timed the announcement for my wedding. Actually, you timed your wedding for my announcement. I asked you to move the date. You refused. You said my work schedule didn't dictate your wedding. I didn't know. Biz, you never asked. None of you ever asked about my work. You just assumed I was failing and mocked me for it. Resolution. The reception ended early. No one could focus on celebrating after the revelation. Guests left in clusters, whispering, checking their phones, reading articles about my company. My parents tried to talk to me. Riley, we're so sorry. We had no idea. You had every opportunity to know. You chose not to ask. We want to make this right, Dad said desperately. You can't. You spent 6 years treating me like a disappointment while I built a billion-dollar company. That doesn't go away with an apology. Lauren cornered me in the parking lot. You ruined my wedding. I didn't ruin anything. Your wedding happened. People celebrated. The timing of my company announcement doesn't change that. Everyone's talking about you instead of me. Then maybe you shouldn't have spent the evening mocking my career and salary. Actions have consequences, Lauren. I'm your sister. You treated me like a charity case. You threw away my gift. You made jokes about my poverty in front of 200 people. You were my sister when it was convenient and a bully when it wasn't. She had no response. I got in my Honda, the same one they'd mocked all evening, and drove back to Cambridge. The next morning my phone had over 300 missed calls. My parents, extended family, old friends from high school, people I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone suddenly wanted to talk. I blocked most of them. The Nasdaq listing happened 3 weeks later. I rang the opening bell wearing a simple black suit surrounded by my team, the people who'd actually built the company with me. The stock opened at $42 per share. By the end of the first day, it had climbed to $67. My net worth increased by $900 million in 6 hours. Forbes ran a cover story, "The Billionaire They Mocked, How Chen Built an AI Empire in Silence." The article mentioned my sister's wedding and the family dynamics. It became a viral story about hidden success and family dysfunction. My family sent countless messages. Apologies. Explanations. Requests to talk things through. I responded to exactly one. My mother's email. Mom, you spent my entire life prioritizing Lauren's accomplishments over mine. When I achieved something bigger than anything she ever did, your first instinct was to mock it because you didn't understand it. That tells me everything I need to know about how you see me. I'm not interested in a relationship built on my net worth. I wanted a family that valued me before I was a billionaire. You weren't that family. I never heard back. 6 months after the IPO, Lauren and Chad divorced. Turns out Chad's family wasn't as wealthy as they'd claimed. The dealerships were heavily in debt. Chad had been living on credit, not income. The irony wasn't lost on me. 1 year after going public, Vertex Analytics was valued at $4.2 billion. We'd expanded internationally, opened offices in 12 countries, and hired over 2,000 employees. I was 30 years old and one of the 50 richest self-made women in America. I sold my studio apartment and bought a penthouse in Cambridge overlooking the Charles River. I kept the Honda. I'd grown attached to it, and it reminded me of who I was before anyone knew my net worth. I received one final email from Lauren 2 years after her wedding. Riley, I know I don't deserve a response. But I want you to know I'm sorry. Not because you're rich, but because I was cruel. I spent years making you feel small because it made me feel big. That was wrong. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I finally understand what I did. Lauren. I read it 3 times. Then I wrote back. Lauren, I appreciate the apology. But the damage is done. You didn't make me feel small. I always knew my worth. You revealed who you were. And I don't have space in my life for people who only respect me after they learn my bank account balance. I hope you find happiness. Just not with me in your life. Riley. I never heard from her again. 3 years after going public, I was invited to ring the Nasdaq closing bell. I brought my entire executive team, the people who'd believed in me when no one else did. Standing there watching the numbers flash across the screens, I thought about that wedding reception. About the jokes. The mockery. The assumptions. They'd thought they were better than me because they had designer clothes and country club memberships and expensive champagne. I'd built an empire while they were planning parties. The difference between us was simple. They cared about appearances. I cared about achievement. They wanted to look successful. I wanted to be successful. And when the moment of truth came, when reality met perception, only one of us was left standing. It was me. It had always been me.